The Marvels has been breaking records for weeks now, as it has bombed in every single way possible. But the truth is, it was doomed from the start, not just because of the cast that they chose, but also the people that made it, where whenever you say the director's name, you get one universal response from the audience. Who? Of course, it only gets worse when they find out the shows that she's known for, and they go, oh, the Candyman, that was trash. In fact, if you look at all of her previous writing credits, most of them hover around the 6 area, so you know, at least she's consistent in producing kind of movies. And that might be fine with things like The Candyman, where you had a $25 million budget. But not when you're doing The Marvels with $270 million. No, with those kind of budgets, you need a lot more going for you than just, this movie doesn't have dangly bits. Actually, no, sorry, I tell a lie there. This is the Lego version of Captain Marvel's ship, and I'm just like, come on. That can't just be me. Doesn't even get better when you've built the thing. You just end up a lot less excited. And while she originally came out and said, I want to make a movie that is fun, funny, and full of heart, that quickly degenerated into a bile and racism when she came out attacking the fans as virulent, violent, racist, sexist, and homophobic. It's like, oh boy, not only is there a disgusting bigot in the house, but it's someone who can barely speak English. Now, the moment it happened, I was reminded of the She-Hulk debacle, where they started calling out toxic fans over there. Worked really well for them as well. But even She-Hulk didn't come out and go, and then even start the next thing with and. I mean, come on. Use a different pissing word. Or a comma. I always say, if you want your insults to land, they should be sort of original. What you don't want to do when you're insulting somebody else is showcase your own ignorance. I want to exist in the space of pure adoration. Have you ever considered making something good, love? I know it'll be difficult, as you might actually have to earn something for a change rather than failing upwards. Your work may look terrible on a balance sheet, but it will look amazing on an Oscars requirements checklist. But maybe ignore that side of Hollywood and try and make something actually good. Be a nice change of pace for you. Then you might get some adoration rather than people going, this is trash. As that's basically been the story of the Marvels. Everyone just going, yeah, we kind of know this is trash. But at least Miss Marvel came out and says, yeah, you know, I don't care about flopping because what am I supposed to do about it? It's not my job. I just turn up and act. The failure is for Bob Iger to worry about. And it definitely is. The Marvel star praises the MCU giving her a job. She speaks out about the importance of having falsely inflated job opportunities. Spoke about her casting and the film's incredible representation of women. What we really need is more movies that give people like me a job. Those aren't the ones that care about, like, talent or success or good movies. No, what they care about is them getting a job. And it really depends whether you want to make money or burn it. Because burn it is exactly what the Marvels did, as they cared about the latter. That's how you ended up with the Marvels breaking records left, right, and center. This movie has been representing people of no talent greater than any other movie before. That's why we had the worst MCU opening day, followed by absolutely flopping at the international box office, getting 63 million, broke another record with the first Monday box office, absolutely bombed in China, with people coping and saying, oh, it's just superhero fatigue. And there is a lot of coping with this movie. Don't worry, we're definitely going to get to the coping. They made just 11.5 million throughout all of China. And then we had some extra massive cope when we went, it wins the Korean box office. Before it turns out that added 2.35 million. What a win. And then it broke another record on the second weekend for the largest drop that was worse than Morbius, coming in at 79% drop, which I thought was particularly impressive, considering the first weekend was so low anyway. Like, surely there must have been some cat ladies left to go see it the second weekend. And I say that deliberately because that's clearly the target audience of this movie, as not only did we get cat marketing before the movie was released, we got it during the movie as well. We had IGN literally interviewing a cat for the movie. And I know the actors involved in this movie, you don't really want them giving interviews themselves.
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time.
I know Brie Larson said that she was so happy to finally be able to talk about the Marvels. But let's face it, a cat is far safer to do the job.
So, Goose, what's it like being the real star of the Marvels?
Where's the lie? Not only were the cats the best scene in the entire movie as they went around just eating people. Seriously, it was like a scene out of a horror movie. But this cat shows more personality in 10 seconds than Brie Larson did in 90 minutes. And attacked an IGN microphone, making reality how all the audience feel.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Even the interviewer agrees. Really, I should just piss off. And look, I know the movie failed, but I kind of have to give credit to the marketing. They didn't have much to work with, and yet the cat marketing is really the best thing they could have done. The There are times where I just admired the marketing department. Well, no, I say admired the marketing department. I mean, admired the sheer gall of the marketing department.
You. And you.
I mean, this movie bombed by anyone's definition of the term. And yet, how did the Marvels marketing spin that absolute disaster? The Marvels have arrived. Don't miss the #1 movie in the world. I don't care what anyone says. The barefaced cheek alone takes balls. If you're gonna lie, make it a bigger, make it worth your while. And you know, there's many places that you can put the blame. Mine would be on the directors and the writers and the people that hired them. I mean, if you hire someone who's this much of a hateful bigot, somebody who made the movie that her teenage self would want to see when she's so repulsive to an audience, and somebody who's absolutely obsessed with shoving her head up her own arse. She was also wrapped up in other controversy, like leaving work on the Marvels while it was still in post-production. If you're directing a $250 million movie, now, she did come back and comment about leaving, but far from saying they hit back over reports of the departure, all she actually says is, well, you know, I had a greenlit movie to go to. And while she does say that they moved the date of the film 4 different times, it kept being pushed again and again, it's like, yeah, okay. But it also says that you left while it was in post-production. It doesn't really matter if the release date of the movie gets pushed again and again. Why haven't you finished the pissing film? You're the director. The film should be finished. And yet when you're accused of leaving in post-production, you're just like, well, you know, it still wasn't finished, so I had to leave. I'm not sure that's much of an excuse. Have you considered finishing it on schedule? Just seems like that would have been a good idea, and then you could have left on schedule. Then it got even weirder when you've got this from the Hollywood Reporter that says she started to bail on cast and crew screenings. DaCosta decided to ditch the cast and crew screening for a birthday party instead, for a representative for DaCosta responded that it would be quite disrespectful and upsetting to suggest Nia has anything other than adoration for the creative team. Not enough adoration to actually attend the screening of her own movie. And it gets even weirder when he goes, according to the representative, DaCosta hadn't been invited to the cast and crew screening. Why are we doing a cast and crew screening of a movie and they're not inviting the director of the movie? What did you do to the cast and crew, love? I don't know. It doesn't seem like they're that big of fans. It just seems like somebody should be offended. You know, at best, they forgot you existed. At worst, they deliberately didn't invite you because they couldn't stand your presence. I don't know which one it is. I also don't know which is worse. Is it better to be disliked as a boss or leave so little impact on their life that they forget you physically exist? I don't know. You've even got Forbes coming in and under Paul Tassi saying the Marvels director has been unfairly maligned for months now, where one of his big comebacks about it, accusing her of being inexperienced in making movies, is that 2 first-time showrunners were also put in charge of the $1 billion Rings of Power. Yeah, mate, that shouldn't have been done either. I'm not sure your great big argument about putting inexperienced people in charge of movies is particularly well rebutted, where you go, yes, this other example also shouldn't have happened. You're just proving that we shouldn't put inexperienced people in charge of big projects. We even get a paragraph about how she's a huge gamer. She's played The Last of Us and Horizon Zero Dawn, Skyrim, and Breath of the Wild. I'm like, okay, mate, but a $270 million movie was trash and it's going to lose well over $100 million. I don't think that's saved by her knowing who Link is. And it's definitely not helping when in Hollywood, people fail upwards. That's why when I'm like, yes, the marketing did make them interview a cat, I'm like, but Nia DaCosta didn't give them anything else to work with. What were the marketing team supposed to do? But as this movie was so amazing because it gave certain categories an increased opportunity at a job, what it did prompt was massive cope from the audience. We have to absolutely defend this terrible movie, which is losing over $100 million. We've got to throw our bodies in front of it to take the bullet. Even Stephen King came out. This is just adolescent fanboy hate. Have you considered paying for a ticket, Stephen? If you've got a spare $600 million, maybe you could make this movie profitable. It really depends how much you care about this movie. You could always put your money where your mouth is. Wouldn't want you to be seen as one of those adolescent fanboy haters. But of course, King isn't going to do that. He wants all of the virtue, just without spending any of the time, energy, or money. And I don't even mean $600 worth, mate. He didn't even buy a pissing ticket. I don't go to MCU movies. But you can't dislike this one. Some of the rejection of the Marvels may be adolescent fanboy hate. You know, yuck. Girls. Yeah, I mean, with a lineup like that, how could red-blooded men not find something to like? I mean, they are covered up like a Victorian housewife. Go through the movie trying to spot a bit of cheeky ankle. Stephen, you could say that people rejected this movie because of yuck girls. But I can promise you, if these outfits had 50% less fabric on them, and you changed nothing else, the movie still would have done a lot better. Wonder Woman didn't do well because everybody thought yuck girls, nor were they interested in her thoughts about the economy, or who should get to review what movies.
I do not need a 40-year-old white dude to tell me what didn't work for him about A Wrinkle in Time.
No, that is an outfit that says she wants to get saved by the prince.
She's not going to be saved by the prince, and she's not going to be dreaming about true love.
But Stephen King, proving he's got the media comprehension of a caveman, notwithstanding, the cope for this movie was glorious. I mean, it started with the minor stuff, like Variety going, Disney's Marvel Cinematic Universe is no longer a bulletproof box office franchise. Like, I'm sorry, but that's not been true for a long time. And it's been true long before Ant-Man 3. That was just the funniest because, well, it's got Kang in it. And when the Marvels has broken so many negative records, like being the first MCU title to fall short of $100 million domestic, the cope is strong. Like, the Marvels ends with a bang. It's dropping several major hints about the rest of the universe and the future of the saga. Yeah, this movie may be trash and nobody may care about it, but look, it's showing you about the rest of the saga. You need to see this because the other movies rely on it. I mean, they'll be trash too, but if you watch them, they'll be trash and you'll be confused. I mean, that would be true if they had any depth to them, but that went away a long time ago. I do hear a lot about how you needed to see so much for this movie. It's like it wasn't that deep, mate. I mean, no. I mean, this movie may have failed because of ideology, but that's a good thing. We don't need to give these bad apples the light of day. You know those bad apples, the ones with your money, the ones who are literally telling you why they don't like the movie, the ones who are saying maybe you should hire talented people rather than ones who tick boxes on an Oscars application.
The industry talks a lot about identity.
The franchise has gone so far as to satirize these silly sorts of comments. Yeah, we're clapping back at our own pissing audience. This sort of toxic hate comes from a place of anger.
I heard you come in late last night. Fill up the condom jar if you need a re-up.
It is strange to think that people are angry about this. Nobody cares about you because you don't matter. You're irrelevant. People aren't going to watch your movie anymore. You're not leaving an impact on their world at all. You actually have to care about something to be angry about it. Really, it's a comfort blanket to you to say that this is toxic hate and comes from a place of anger, because then you're saying that you actually matter in the world. That your movie isn't bad, it's just a load of people over there's problem. And it's a lot more comforting to think that it's their problem, rather than the fact that you made something so boring, so monotonous, a product that lacks any kind of quality that could even possibly entertain a person in the world, to the point where nobody cares about it, and you've left absolutely zero impression on the world. That all that time and money you put in it amounted to literally nothing. You may as well have just set the money on fire. It's a lot more comforting to think people hate you and have an emotion or even an opinion about you, rather than realizing that you probably just shouldn't have done anything. And then we get a delusional point where it's like, the world is better when stories are told not from the same perspective over and over again. Well, yeah, it's weird, that, isn't it? Why are stories told about the same girl boss over and over and over again? I don't know. It's literally the same perspective. It allows you to see the world through other people's eyes. I don't need a movie to do that, mate. That's actually a normal skill of humanity. Well, if you can conceptualize. Maybe when you've got 80 IQ, it's a bit more difficult. I don't know. Maybe then you do need something to actually literally see in front of you, because your brain can't comprehend somebody else's point of view. And then we get Forbes, who says, like it or not, the Marvels is bombed in every possible way, and boy, does he not like it. I mean it bombing, not the movie. He loves the movie. Justice for the Marvels, I cry, as I watch every news story torch its performance. I liked the film. I thought it was a fun film. You can blame the strike erasing the press tour with its charismatic star.
How long will you play Captain Marvel?
I don't know. Does anyone want me to do it again?
I mean, that's a comment on par with me saying that She-Hulk is the best MCU series, and it's abominable that we haven't had a season 2. We should have had season 3 renewals by now. It really comes across as if you're taking the piss. But it's not just that you can blame. No, you can blame those YouTube jerks dumping on the film months ahead of release. I'm assuming he means when people commented on trailers. You're really overestimating the power of YouTube videos. We have enough trouble getting people to hit that subscribe or membership button. Even getting people to press the like button is so difficult, it's factored into the success of your video. And you're like, oh, It's like mind control. I've watched a video and now I completely hate everything about it. Have you ever considered it's just because it's awful? It's superhero fatigue. But whatever the case is, which I suppose couldn't be the movie, it's broken all of these horrible records. But don't worry, its audience score's 83, and it's the highest grossing theatrical release of all time by a black director, which has lost the most money. I mean, quite frankly, I'm not sure I'd be shouting about that one. It really reeks of you just going, hey look, category. I mean, yes, it got the most money of all time, and it lost the most money of all time. Probably shouldn't be pointing that one out, mate. You'll start giving people the idea that maybe hiring people because of category will result in massive losses. And then who are you gonna virtue signal over? But no, it didn't fail because it was awful. It failed because of anti-woke backlash. Don't you understand? This has 3 actors without dangly bits in, and you should care about that for some reason. I don't know. I thought I was supposed to have people who represented me. They don't represent me. Why would I care about a movie where I wasn't represented? That's what I want to know. I can't help thinking that if the patriarchy is the reason why movies are failing now, why the movies don't start appealing to the patriarchy. It's apparently all-powerful. That just seems like good business. I know Hollywood isn't a business now, is it? Hollywood got rid of all the business people, you know, the men with talent. No, now we care about not having dangly bits for some reason. It's really important that we falsely inflate job opportunities for people who couldn't have got into the position on their own. And despite the fact that we've got people writing articles where apparently we've got to point out categories as if it's important for some reason, I'm not sure why I should care about it. It's interesting that you do. It says we need to ignore the trolls, calling them an unnecessary distraction. The director thinks that the audience is an unnecessary distraction. We need to focus on making the best movie possible. And for some reason, at no point does that include caring about what the audience thinks. When I say that we should hire the best people for the job, I don't just mean like the most talented. I also mean people who aren't stupid. Where you get things like the Radio Times coming out and going, The Marvels doesn't need to be a smash at the box office. It's already a success. But I don't know if you've noticed, but a movie is only a success if it's profitable. That is literally the only way that you judge a business. Are you making money? And yet with this, oh no, because this lands at a critical time for the MCU, yes, as the MCU is dying and this loses even more money, and the same article admits that they've pulled in a dire 47 million, which of course it blames on, it's those little trolls who hate people without dangly bits. Because this journalist is also incredibly smart. The kind of people where if you ask them where milk comes from, they'd say the supermarket. But there's a host of other reasons to celebrate people who can't do the windmill, and I'm hoping they get to a point because there's this much of the article that I've already gone through, but they haven't said anything about the title. There's actually less left of the article before they got to the point. But don't worry, I mean, the director's black. It's literally the first reason they give as to why this movie is a success. Oh look, category. I mean, you do expect these journalists to hide their own bigotry, but apparently they're unable to do that. Only the 3rd person without dangly bits to make one of her own, and the 3rd solo female superhero movie in the franchise, which is always a cause for celebration. For who? The people getting cast in the movie role? I mean, I don't think anyone else cares who's got a brain cell between them. As this subgenre is sorely behind the male-led ones. Yes, you're right. Those are the people who tend to actually make money in these movies. Some would say that's a reason to continue making them. But what do those people know? Those are just successful in business and make profit. It's also reignited my passion for the MCU, and hey, if reigniting this person's passion in the MCU isn't worth burning $150 million, then I don't know what is. Jess Bacon is happy, and so am I. This is someone who's named after a foodstuff. But despite the cope, the Marvel Studios is taking stock of strategy. I don't know, maybe we should make a good movie for once. And despite saying they're going through a strategy, when they actually explain what they think the problem is, things like, we've diluted the product. Why would you have the same characters that are on the TV if you want them to go to the theatre? Said one film producer. Well, yes, we couldn't have failed because we didn't hire people due to their talent. We hired them for their checkboxes. It couldn't have failed because the people that get hired that way inevitably have values and morals completely opposite the audience. It couldn't have failed because Hollywood as a whole is full of people who absolutely repel their audience with what they believe. It couldn't be that we've systematically hired people into roles that they can't do because we have abandoned hiring people on the basis of merit many years ago at this point. It couldn't be that we've embraced an ideology that absolutely hates the people who would make us money. No, it couldn't be any of those. No, it must have been because we've diluted their product by putting these characters on a TV show before. Yeah, when Kenobi came along, the main problem that people had with it was, why are you putting our movie character onto a TV screen? Because the last thing an audience wants is to see more of something that they actually like. No, Hollywood has filled itself with people so incompetent they have no idea why any of these things are failing. Instead, it's just their own pretentiousness. It's a film producer, and he thinks that films are art and looks down on television as if it's some form of lower media, where all the audience wants is entertainment. And I don't know if people have noticed, but they kind of watch a lot of TV shows. Far more TV shows than they do movies. Quite frankly, maybe you're the medium that people should look down on. The ones who can barely keep an idea going for 90 minutes. But no, the Marvels hasn't killed the MCU. Instead, it just proves how good the actors are. This lost $150 million. That proves the actors are amazing. This ought to be good. What it really proves, SAG-AFTRA's point, that if only these actors could have gone forth and done interviews, then it definitely would have made another $600 million and actually broken even. Yes, if only Brie Larson could have been interviewed by IGN instead of a cat, it definitely would have made $600 million more. I mean, that's some coping off, that one. I mean, you could have tried having the director not slurring the fans with all the most abuse she could find, basically just picking up bricks and lobbing them through the windows of everyone's houses, and just going to the audience's houses, smashing windows and going, "Why haven't you seen the Marvels?" I don't know. Maybe it's because you're bricking my house. Doesn't make your products appealing to me. I don't know why. I can't quite put my finger on it, love. It is interesting that you're coming out with all these slurs about the people who don't like your movie, and then you find the people she's slurring are ones like The Telegraph or The Irish Times. Please tell me, Nia DaCosta, why do you hate the Irish so much? I would love to know. There seems to be some kind of innate hatred you've got for the New York Times or The Guardian. I'm at least with you there. I mean, the Financial Times, they also weren't big fans. Which one of your slurs is particularly applicable to them? I'd love to know. Can you tell me, when it comes to this variety journalist, which kind of brand of bigotry do you think applies to them? Do you think it's homophobic, or... I don't know, I just think we should nail down some of these violent, virulent slurs that you're throwing around. Let's just get down into the specific accusations that you're making about people, shall we? Would you, Nia, say that the Irish Times was specifically virulent, violent, or racist? Like, which one? I mean, they did use the term black hole, so does that narrow it down for you? Or do you just think they're like a broad smorgasbord of everything? I don't think we get down to the specifics where you name and shame the people that you're virulently insulting. Let's not leave any doubt about the people you're talking about. And lots of the cope was just, it can't be that the movie's bad. I mean, it must just be that people hate everything the movie stands for. I mean, we could make movies that actually stood for things the audience liked, rather than trying to force Hollywood's ideology down their throats. Yeah, that is possible. But I think the biggest takeaway from all of this is that Barbie and the Marvels support feminine creativity. Yes. I mean, that creativity did burn $150 million plus for one of these movies. But on the other hand, Barbie made an absolute crap ton. And I think this is an interesting dichotomy between the two, because on the one hand, you've got Barbie, something that said, yes, look, we know that you're all miserable and lonely.
Sorry, I'm sad and lonely.
But it's not your fault you're miserable and lonely. It's just all those people over there that are causing it. You're not accountable or responsible for any of your own actions, because you're just getting held down by everybody else. And that did incredibly well. And then you've got the Marvels that says, you're all really massive, super-powered heroes. You can be whatever you want to be, and no one can hold you back. No, in fact, you're strong, you're amazing, and you can do anything. They didn't like that. That would mean that your life is actually within your own control. That would mean that if you're sad and miserable, well, you could have been anything. You chose to be sad and miserable. Yeah, it's weird how that one didn't work, did it? No. Barbie, though. Barbie's message was amazing. People love it. The interesting thing is the message of the Marvels would actually have worked for blokes.
There's a hot chick over there. I'm gonna go talk to it.
I think the lesson here is that if you actually want to show this kind of creativity, you really need to put forward a message that really backs up what the audience already thinks, which is definitely Barbie more than the Marvels. Now, this movie didn't fail because it was ass. It just failed because of MCU fatigue, or that the Marvels is actually great. It just suffers from other MCU interference. The Marvels sacrificed itself on the franchise altar. It died for your sins. I mean, it's actually a great movie. It just, people didn't like the ending. That was all. That's why it lost $150 million, because yeah, people like 90% of it, but those last 10 minutes, people couldn't stand them. And that's just from the media. There is a whole dark underbelly of the internet that we like to call Disney fans. But no, we get dragged into it. It's so hard having to write about the Marvel's box office. It's such a drag. There's so many factors, some of which are outside anyone's control, like the strike. But the one that's really bugging me is they didn't market it to families. It's the perfect family film. I'm like, is it? That's weird. Family films are normally about families. Two of the main characters in this show are middle-aged cat ladies. Literally. If you want a family film, they'd have their husband and children along for the ride. But I have a feeling that's a message that you'd also find such a drag to write about. I will never forgive you for letting this movie fail. It's one of the nastiest things I've ever seen. I thought that the movie was pretty nasty as well. After all the negative comments I've seen about the Marvels, it cemented in my mind the majority of people who don't like this movie simply can't handle powerful women leading a project. I don't know, I mean, I agree with you that there does seem to be a problem with leading this project. I'm just suggesting maybe it's the people leading the project. As if it was led well, the movie should actually be good, right? I mean, I don't really care how powerful somebody leading a project is if the project turns out crap. Then you should probably fire everybody responsible for it being crap. If you do that enough times, then eventually you'll hire a good person. I mean, even with the most horrid of ideologies, you're gonna look into it eventually. But don't worry, if you're upset about this movie not going forwards, Brie Larson has confirmed there's definitely something there. Brie Larson confirms Captain Marvel will return in MCU's future, teasing she also knows which project she'll return in. Doesn't matter how much money you lose, you'll always be back as long as you tick the right box on an Oscar form.
I don't know, does anyone want me to do it again?
The industry talks a lot about identity.
Hollywood, everybody, they don't always lose money, but when they do, they deserve it. And look, Disney is not going to learn from this failure because they don't employ people who would actually tell them the truth. Probably because if they told them the truth, those people would get fired. So instead, they have to rely on third-party information. Ones like Polygon. Obviously, bastion of talent themselves, Polygon thinks that Captain Marvel should have been the MCU's first true jock because representation matters.
At the end of the day, this is the story of representation, and it matters.
This is bad. This is really bad.
Yes, it really matters that we increase the job opportunities for people who don't deserve them. And we know they don't deserve them, because if they did, we wouldn't have to falsely give them jobs. They'd just be able to compete as the best person for it. This isn't complicated or difficult, but boy, is it beyond Polygon. In the end, Carol Danvers never quite becomes the well-meaning, slightly dense super jock that we deserve. Yeah, I mean, we ended up with slightly dense, we just didn't get the super jock part of it. I mean, the problem with Captain Marvel is we just didn't spend enough time with her. She's had 2 pissing movies. How much more time do you want? But in the ultimate act of cope, The Hollywood Reporter comes out. After bombing with the Marvels and releasing a glut of projects in recent years, there's still hope for Marvel Studios to push through the wreckage. I want whatever they're huffing, because that is some top-grade copium. I mean, this writer even has a paragraph where she says she's hesitant to blame it on slurs because there are things that run counter to that narrative. I mean, she didn't do it with all the gusto of somebody who really wants to make the argument, but at least the argument is there, which makes a change, before immediately falling flat on her face when saying the most obvious culprit is Bob Iger and Bob Chapek. It's like, yeah, of course, it must be the CEO because the CEO's there writing down all of these projects. It's not like Disney is a massive company with very different aspects on it. They need to individually oversee every single movie. It must be their fault. It couldn't be, oh, I don't know. It couldn't be the person who made the thing. It couldn't be theirs. Couldn't be the writers. It couldn't be the person who hired the director and the writers. It couldn't be everyone immediately responsible for the massive failure in front of them. No, it's Bob Chapek's fault. Or maybe the true enemy of Marvel is time itself. I wish I was joking. The Marvels perform poorly because the MCU and its fanbase are getting old. Its real problem is that Gen Z stayed at home. Like, who gives a toss about Gen Z? They don't have any money anyway. They're too busy being on TikTok wondering if they're a cat. They don't need to go and see a movie about cats. It'll confuse them even more.
We need you.
No, the problem with the Marvels is that it didn't appeal to anybody. And if Gen Z are staying at home for this movie, but the ones that went were of older demographics, why didn't you make the movie for them? This is the everlasting point that you keep coming back to. I don't care if you want to say that all your audiences are random slurs. Let's just say that the entire population are the biggest bigots that you've ever seen in your life. It still comes down to, why aren't you making movies for them? Whatever your audience are, you should be making movies for them. It's not your job to disagree. It's not your job to try and force an opinion on them. It's not your job to try and change them. I don't care whether you like the people that you're selling a product to. You still have to make a product that appeals to them, that they agree with, that aligns with their beliefs. And if you've got a load of staff who don't align with those beliefs and hire people who do agree, if the Marvels fails, your entire staff should come out and go, yeah, we're not going to do that again. Oh, that was a disaster. Story about 3 girl bosses. Nobody wants to see a girl boss. What was that about? And if your staff are too thick to realise that, then you doubly need to get rid of them. Now, there are some articles that try and look at the massive disaster and work out exactly what the problem was. Like, we've got Den of Geek coming out with what the Marvels got right. That was fast. Those are the articles I like best. The short ones. Oh, he also made Brie Larson get with one of the other characters. I didn't even pick up on that in the movie. I don't know whether it was because the message was so subtle, or whether my brain was just trying too hard to stay awake to concentrate at that time. But either way, it made another article afterwards. And others think that this might be the last traditional Marvel movie. What's more traditional than 3 girl bosses? Oh, really goes back into the depths of history, doesn't it? Marching out across a medieval battlefield. Just ranks upon ranks of women in plate armor, going at it with swords. There's nothing more traditional than that. And my personal favorite was Variety, who said that to save the MCU, we must first destroy it. I don't even care about the rest of the article. Just the title is enough for me. Pedro Pascal proves that money has become Marvel's greatest villain. This has nothing to do with the Marvels. I just thought it was funny that IGN was crapping on Pedro Pascal. 10 valid reasons why fans didn't like the Marvels. CBR coming in as the arbiters of why you're allowed to dislike a movie. Dexerto asks, why did the Marvels flop? Spoiler alert. It's not because the movie is bad. As the last time I go to a website for media critique, which generally talks about streamers showing their arseholes on camera. It's not because it's bad, it's because you're overly critical. Maybe it's just because I've got standards. But if we're not allowed to be overly critical, I'll balance it out with some praise. I mean, Brie Larson is really happy with the Marvels. Captain Marvel actress celebrates her latest release. I mean, this is a movie that's broken basically every negative record for a Marvel movie. It's burning like $150 million plus. But don't worry, because if Brie Larson is happy with that, then so am I. If it's good enough for Brie, it's good enough for me. That's what I say. I need that on a t-shirt. But HuffPost, masters of media critique, thinks that the Marvels never really stood a chance. This is just a symptom of a larger issue. This vehement declaration that this is the worst movie film ever with the worst characters is a symptom of a larger issue. And to put it plainly, that issue is racism and misogyny.
It's the pair of anguish. It was used on women who had relations with the devil.
That plays a huge role in what is perceived as successful. But then you start to read the next paragraph and I'm like, I kind of agree with you. I think you're just talking about yourself, love. When she says the truth is the Marvels never stood a chance because it was the first film but it was made by a black director. Love, it sounds like you're the racist. It also includes Kamala's family, who are South Asian origin actors. Why are you using that against them? That's one of the most bigoted paragraphs I've read, and it came from the Huffington Post. And of course, you get the undeniable truth of who really went to see the movie. Like I say, what it comes down to is, are you preaching victimization or empowerment? Which one does your target audience like the most? But people nowadays have generally had enough. The cards have been marked at Disney. Even the mainstream access media are now coming out with articles how Marvel ruined cinema and sowed the seeds of its own destruction. People don't care anymore. They don't care about their access. They're just going to tell you the truth because everyone can see it. Your movies are burning so much money, no one can deny it. And so unless they want to come across as complete and utter shills, some people are happy to be seen that way. They have to come out and go, look, we've got problems. How can we spin it in the nicest way possible? How can we find something to excuse it on? How can we let your staff off the hook? Then holding the people who were responsible. The ones who made the show. The ones who wrote the show. The ones in charge. And the people that hired them. Because it's no longer enough just to fire people who make a bad movie. And that doesn't even happen. They just get promoted on to the next thing. But you're going to have to look at the reasons behind why they were hired in the first place. Your hiring processes, procedures, and what you really value in a business. Do you value talent? People who have got a proven track record of making good movies. People who have the morals and values of the audience themselves. Or are you going to go on exactly as you have been doing in the past and valuing the importance of increasing specific groups' job opportunities, regardless of whether they have any talent or not? Because there's really only one thing that's going to get you out of this hole, and that's hiring the best people for the job. Your problem is, you don't like the people who are the best for the job. You don't agree with the audience's values and morals, and the only way you're going to fix that problem is getting rid of every single person in your companies who disagree with the audience. And oh boy, are you going to need somebody with big, massive dangly bits in order to enact that change. But until you do, you're going to end up with this. You're going to scare off your audience, and you are going to burn hundreds of millions of dollars. But I don't believe you're going to do that, and that's your problem, not mine. Because the only thing I'm going to be doing is sitting here and laughing at it. But those are just my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know down in the comments below. Like the video if you like the video. Subscribe for more videos like this in the future, and I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.